Welcome to episode 2 of Briefly Creative, a podcast that explores insights, stories, and frameworks for living a meaningful creative life. I'm your host, Greg Gunn. Possessing a growth mindset is one of those terms you see sprinkled throughout all corners of LinkedIn bios and resumes in the greater creative industry, which is a very good thing. But what is a growth mindset? And do you have one? And if you do, are you using it? I think of growth mindset as having the capacity to continually learn and improve yourself over time. That includes absorbing and benefiting from criticism. Not an easy thing to do. And as creatively inclined people, I think it's an important and powerful trait that happens to be ingrained in all of us. But like most living things, if it's neglected, that part of us will wither on the vine, and that's not so good. Today, I want to talk about how we can apply a growth mindset to keep that part of ourselves strong and keep our creative fire burning. By nature, the creative industry is a beautiful, swirling milkshake of constant change. Trends come and go, audience preferences evolve, and new technologies disrupt everything we thought we knew was possible. I mean, it's hard to imagine a world without AI at this point. While we can't effectively predict the future, we can bet that what we do now and how we do it will look a lot different later. Which means we need to know how to grow, how to move with changing tides. I've written about how important adaptability was for my career, but the approach I took to make those changes can best be described as reinvention. Now, you may hear reinvention and think, dude, I'm an animator. I don't want to learn how to farm, which is a very reasonable thought. But that's not really what I mean. For me, reinvention is more like having the self-awareness and foresight to consider what you may want to change and then taking steps to make that change. So I've reinvented myself several times. I started as a coder, building websites, like literally doing the programming. Then I got into graphic design. I went to school and became an animator and focused on motion design. And I spent a good part of my career directing commercials, like with people in live action. After that, I explored life as an illustrator, and I even am currently still dabbling in content creation, hence this show. And now I'm quite happy as a product designer. And all of these transformations were driven by my curiosity, a desire for growth, and also by necessity, in that I never want what I do to be undervalued. And oftentimes, that means changing what I do, or at least how I'm doing it. In my mind, reinvention is self-awareness of where you are and where things are headed. It's transformative thoughts about what you'd like to change or explore. And it's taking steps toward creating that change for yourself. Now, what I don't think reinvention is giving up on what you do or what you enjoy. Reinvention isn't following a trend, and it's certainly not changing who you are. Musicians are excellent reinventors. When you listen to an artist's first album and compare it to their newest, they're often quite different. Sometimes that's really good. Sometimes it's not that good. And apparently hipster Greg has entered the chat at this point. Subjectivity aside, what remains constant is their musical sensibility, their ability to make something that connects and communicates with people. Think about artists like Prince and Bjork and how their music evolved over decades. Norway's Ulver started as a ferocious black metal band, but now they drop these super catchy electro-pop albums. It's really fascinating to think about. All that is to say, we reinvent to adapt, to stay relevant, and like I said, to keep our creative fire burning. And we use reinvention for growth or simply to overcome an obstacle. Sometimes reinvention means making a big, sweeping change, but sometimes it's just moving to where your skills are most appreciated. Do not fear reinvention. Instead, nurture and water that mental garden you've grown and embrace a growth mindset. Thank you for joining me today. You can find more info, show notes, and a transcript of this episode at brieflycreative.fm. You can find Briefly Creative on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast listening app. And if you enjoyed what you heard, then please rate and give the show a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It would mean a lot to me and be a huge help for growing the show. Thanks again for listening, and remember, what worked for someone else may not work the same way for you, but there is always something to learn from it. See you next time.